school, targeting 1,100 student capacity. And that allows growth. They currently have a lot of growth in the elementary school level, and they want to build for the future. And building out the middle school seemed to make the most sense. So it encompasses 6th, 7th, and 8th grades. They wanted to have extended learning opportunities. They're developing a CTE program for the city, and it's still being developed, but they wanted to have a CTE focus in the middle school with flexible spaces that could accommodate various programming from the career and technical education. We've got family and consumer sciences, STEM lab, CTE lab, and what we're calling a CTE media arts, which is kind of a multi-purpose journalism, TV, theater, music flex space for them to use. I thought it was interesting in the planning. The city was very deliberate about choosing middle school for this site. Originally, it was slated for an elementary school, but the site is located right next to a new community, the Idlewild community, and they want to have equity within the city so that all students will go to the middle school. So they currently have 2 elementary, a middle, and a high, and they're looking at converting the existing middle school to an elementary school, and then allowing all students within the city to experience the new building by going to the new middle school. So that's creating some equity within all of the students and teachers in the city. And then the site is adjacent to a historic Downman house. Unfortunately, they had a fire there that burned the main house. There's some, the brickwork still up. There's some outbuildings that are mostly intact. So they are currently working on a historic preservation project there with education opportunities, and joining that property to the school property was part of the discussions with the site development and how that is impacted. So, the schedule, being a PPEA project, we interviewed in July of 2021. As you know, it usually takes a little while before you get kicked off and started. So we started in November of 21. And then schematics kind of got put on hold. We were asked to do a feasibility study for converting a hospital building into the school instead of building new. And would that save time? That took about 3 months to get that completed and get everybody on the same page saying, no, we really do need to build a middle school. It doesn't make sense to try to convert a hospital. So we got back to DD then in April of 2022 and did our first pricing exercise, came in July of 2022. And as everybody knows, inflation was kind of running rampant during that whole time period. So we had a kind of 2-month delay when the prices came in really high for everybody to kind of adjust and understand the economy and what was happening due to all kinds of factors. But construction prices escalated substantially. So we did get buy-in and from the city and the schools to continue the project. So then when Ernest worked on the interim agreement DDs, the comprehensive agreement kicked us off to get to 65% construction documents. At the same time, our civil engineer had to get to 100% to get that submitted so that we could get our site permit so they could start construction. So it's really a condensed schedule, trying to do design build kind of as part of the process. So where we are now is we've just completed our 100% documents. We're waiting any day now. We should have a site permit. The contractor's already topping trees on the site and getting ready to go full out on development of the site plan itself. So the site plan, this is Gateway Boulevard to the north. And can you see my cursor when I'm talking? I don't know.
Yes, we can.
Okay, just making sure. So Gateway Boulevard is kind of the northeast side of the site, and then Idlewild Boulevard found on the southern side. Neighborhoods are all around the south and east side of the site. You can kind of see the ruins or the house and the outbuildings. They're actually closer to the boundary line than it shows in this plan. But we were tasked with putting a new middle school here. They actually have a football team and wanted a track. So we have a track football field with track and field events, and then a play field for lacrosse, field hockey, soccer included, as well as tennis and basketball. And we found it was important, as always, to separate buses from parents as much as possible. And in order to get all of the traffic off of the site, you can see the blue line here is for parent queuing. So we're able to bring all of the car traffic into the site itself, have a turnaround, come back for queuing, and then drop off along the main entrance portion. So we should be able to get all of the car traffic off of the neighborhood streets and eliminate the congestion with pickup and drop off that way. We have a gate that closes off the staff parking in the morning. So pretty much unless you're parking in the front entrance lot, all of the staff should be coming to the back lot. So they would enter with the buses off of Gateway, and then staff would peel off for parking in the back while the buses would have the dedicated drop off, and then side entrances for students to enter from the buses. That's the overall site plan layout. So the floor plans, as you can see to the left here is the main entrance, which will be a secure vestibule after hours as you come into the building. And we've positioned administrative functions up front for security reasons and welcoming, seeing everyone coming and going. We've got the clinic to the north of that and guidance. And then science is at the front of the building. The sixth grade wing is down to the bottom of the screen here. And then we have the CTE and specialty spaces to the north side of the screen. In the center, anchoring the middle of the building and kind of the heart, is a two-story media center, and opens up to a nice outdoor large learning area courtyard. And then to the right, the blue on the bottom is what we have, our auditoria. It's not a cafetorium, it's an auditoria because it's an auditorium type of space with eating capability. So we don't want it to feel like a cafeteria so much as more of an upscale performance type of space that they can pull out seating in. I've got some renderings of that for later in the presentation. And then our kitchen, so a good multi-use space here with music behind. And then we've got a gym, an auxiliary gym in the purple with the locker rooms. That's our first floor. And then the looping circulation as well. So for our two-story academic wing on the second floor, we've got seventh grade to the south side here, or the south, it's east, but the lower part of the screen here. And then the upper part is eighth grade. Science is clustered at the front with some additional administrative function. And you can see that two-story extended learning down into the media center there. In the corridors, you can see the green areas are some extended learning opportunities. So every grade level has pull-out extended learning spaces for collaboration and getting together. And then, of course, we've got the doors for secure lockdown, be able to separate out the academic wing and the public and the private spaces for after hours learning. So that's kind of the overall. Here you can see with the furniture on, as you come in, the main entry, you have a nice view into this courtyard area. We've got some landscaping around these four different kind of outdoor learning patio areas that can be used throughout the day. And then it connects across to this two-story media center that opens up into the Main Street corridor, dividing more of the public after-hours functions from the academic wing. And you can see the auditoria here is set up as a cafeteria for eating with the stage and then the music behind it. We've got the main gym with the pull-out bleachers and then an auxiliary gym to be able to be used by the community. And then in these CTE spaces, we've got art adjacent to the courtyard with doors coming out for being able to do outdoor classes there and easily come in and out. And then family and consumer science with a bunch of different kitchen type of spaces for students to be able to do culinary arts as well as sewing and some other family and consumer sciences. That's a program that they definitely know they want and are going to be doing. Originally, they wanted to do a commercial kitchen here, but it became cost prohibitive. They were hoping to be able to bring over high school students as well and use the commercial cooking, but that ended up being cost prohibitive with the budget as things developed. But then we have this, and I'm sorry, it's really small here, but kind of multi-use media art space. Half of it is more classroom. And we have a curtain with lighting and some sound capabilities so that they can do TV studio, green wall, journalism, production stuff, or they can use it as theater, breakout classroom instead of at the auditoria stage for part of the day. And then as you come down the hallway, we've got a STEM lab that has flexible tables and space as they're developing what they're going to teach in there. We've provided water and casework. Actually, well, I'll go to the Revit model in a minute if we need to, but they're more of a generic, flexible learning space with a lot of power, pull downs from the ceiling. We've got room for 3D printers and counter space, as well as some sink and plenty of power, whiteboards and teaching space there. And then our tech ed, we've kind of got separated out the classroom from the kind of more dirty side with equipment and dust collection and different saws with a roll up. And it's actually a fold up door to the outside so that if you have larger projects, they can be worked on and taken in and out here. And then we have some special ed up toward the front with some life skills, a sensory room, and some self-contained rooms. And again, you see the second floor with the classrooms on either side, science toward the front. And then you can see the two-story extended learning overlooking the media center with a connecting stair, and then looping corridor connecting all of the academic wing together and easy access down to the first floor for the shared use spaces. So Fredericksburg being a little bit more classical and colonial architecture, especially the Idlewild neighborhood has a colonial feel to it. We stuck with more of a colonial approach for the school with main entry. There were proffers with the development of the school that it had to be mostly masonry. So this is a brick building. We do have some accent pieces here, but mostly brick with some FRP panels. And you can see the approach coming up from the parent drop-off toward the main entrance. And then down the bus loop, you can see we've got several entry points in the welcoming entrance for after hours, prominent coming in for the gym or the cafeteria, auditoria, as well as entry points for during the day, the students coming and going. And then this is the auditoria. This would be, and the colors have not been set yet. This is a potential rendering. We have not decided on all of the color scheme, but this is one possible color scheme. And then this would be when the auditoria is being used for lunch, with the doors open to the kitchen serving lines and snack line. And then it can be easily converted with the bleachers pulled out, chairs lined up, and then it's ready for performance. Doors are pulled down to the kitchen and closed to the snack line. And this is looking the opposite direction. So back, you can see that we have the bleachers with the chairs stacked against the wall. And those are motorized so that they can come out and easily convert the space into a performance space with lighting and curtains and everything, so that it can be flexibly used and maximizing the square footage within the building. So that's kind of an overview of the project, where we're at, and happy to see if anybody's got questions or thoughts as we're coming into the finish line here.
Really excellent.
Cool. Hey,
Thank
Molly,
you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Sorry, I was a little late, but in terms of I see those extended learning collaboration areas. Is that something that it was the goal from the beginning, or was that something in the process it was, arrived to?
It was in the beginning when we discussed with Fredericksburg what they would like to see. They wanted to be able to have the extended learning opportunities. It's not something that they currently have, so it will have them kind of reaching and adjusting teaching styles in the way that they use the building. But they're very eager to embrace the extended learning opportunities and have the ability to break out in small groups and having the passive supervision. They also do have security cameras all around the building that can be monitored from multiple places. So they are concerned about security with supervision, and we have both passive and active supervision of the areas.
Molly, I have a question about the funding. I have many questions, but they're kind of related to each other. So the funding has to do with the infrastructure plan or some recent legislation, right? So I saw that at the beginning of the project, you kind of saw your schedule impacted by some of that, and having to kind of work with that funding.
Right.
Is there any takeaways from that experience? Is there anything you can share with us about that in particular? That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's been an interesting process. We had some definite delays due to funding, which when we interviewed for the job, it was about 20 million less than what it ended up being at our last cost estimate because of inflation. We were looking at that 20% inflation number. And for a small city, that's a lot to swallow. So with the public-private partnership going in with English Construction, they're getting pricing along the way. So we had we went in with, this is about what we can give you for $60 million. This is what you can expect. And then due to inflation and market conditions beyond our control and a delay with the feasibility study for the hospital, as inflation kept pushing prices higher, when we did our 35% pricing, it was a lot higher than the initial 60 million because of inflation. So then that had to go back to the city council and the schools to say, hey, we didn't bargained for this much money. Maybe we should build an elementary school. No, we really want a middle school, and back and forth. How are we going to get the money? Where's it coming from? So there was about a 2-month delay as they debated what they could afford. And meanwhile, inflation's still pushing prices higher. So time being of the essence, they did decide to go ahead with the project and increase the budget. So we were able to then really push to get the 65%. And having the contractor as part of our team, they bid out the project at each phase to their subs. So we get not just a cost estimate from a cost estimator, but they're real time. If we were building it today, they get pricing from their subs at each stage. So there was a little bit more pressure for specifications and trying to get as much in the drawings as possible early so that they could get a realistic price. And then now we're in the midst of pricing it the third time. This will be the final guaranteed maximum price. So once this price is established, then that should be it for the city, unless they make changes. So for what everybody's agreed on in the documents, this will be the guaranteed maximum price. Now there are unforeseen things where the city may say, hey, we want to have something else added, and then it would be a change order to the contract. But it has been more political than usual, both from a smaller jurisdiction working on this, and because it's a combination between the city and the schools. It's not just one entity working together. So there have been a lot of players that we've had to work with to make sure everybody's in agreement in public hearings, and each stage to go forward had a little bit more complication than a just straight up design project.
I got one for you, Molly.
Yeah.
In terms of the capacity, like the program requirement for how many students, were you designing for a projected amount or projected number, what the student body size, or is there already a plan for where the building expansion will go when it's needed at some point, or how was that discussion in there?
So originally, good question. Originally, they kind of maxed out at 1,100 students is the overall master plan. We had 6 classrooms that were an ad alternate at the beginning. That because currently they're at about 750 students, but they do have a large influx in the elementary schools that are coming. So they won't be at the 1,100 student, but that's kind of the maximum they see that they're going to. So they don't anticipate needing to build on here. But the 6 classrooms that were the ad alternate, when they saw the pricing for them, they decided to go ahead and build them now rather than wait. Just as the funding's here now, if they could go ahead and do that, they're really getting the maximum value for the dollar than trying to do it at a later point. So once they got their funding kind of situated, they decided to go ahead and build the 6 classrooms now with the future capacity in mind.
Does anyone have any questions they'd like to go ahead and ask Molly?
I got one more. Sorry, I'm gonna keep going.
Sure.
So I don't know if LEED was already a part of this because it's a part of the public building requirements, or if there's any other rating systems that were just automatic. But they're like one of the new ones. Well, it's not that new, but newer still is like well building, or even some of these other rating systems that are a little bit more environmental experience or interior environment, or overall wellness, not just energy performance. And I didn't know how those sorts of conversations were integrated into this project. Were some program requirements? Did you bring some things to the table, and what kind of reception you got there?
So this one's not under a rating system due to the size of the city and the timing of it. It's not required to be. But we did go ahead and do a LEED scorecard and had some discussions about what can we do. And ultimately, we ended up taking a LEED scorecard, seeing where we were at with the design that we had, to be able to say to the owner, okay, because they are interested in doing green building as much as they can. But when the budget numbers came in, how they did, we got rid of some of the green roofs, the solar panels, some of the things that we would like to see ideally did have to come out of the project, but we left the building design so that it is PV ready if they decide to get if they get funding through another source for that in the future. We left the structure lowered so that they could add the green roof back in for the learning patios outside the science rooms. So we tried to leave as much as we could for them to do at a later point if they get the funding. But this is not a certified sustainable project under any of the rating systems currently. So, but they are interested in trying to promote green building as much as possible, and they are getting electric school buses and trying to work on different aspects of sustainability throughout the city. So that's good to see. Unfortunately, this was not a rated building.
Okay. Looks like there's no other questions, or at least none that people feel comfortable asking. But that's a great project. It's really exciting that CTE is now in our middle schools. I think that's a really big takeaway from this project.
They really do want to try to promote that, and they're working with UVA, and they're trying to get a workshop together to go over what are some potential programs and ways of teaching that they could introduce here, but that hasn't happened yet. So we're looking forward to hopefully being part of those discussions as well.
Right. Do you know if this is the only middle school and first middle school and maybe even high school that they have that offers CTE? This must be one
they
of their
only
nicest.
They only have one middle school, so this will
Right.
be their only middle school, and they have one high school. So, and like I said, they don't really have any area for cooking and culinary arts at the high school, so they may end up busing some kids over and using the CTE spaces from the high school in the morning if they can. We know that there's a big interest in culinary skills, but I'm not sure if they're still going to do that with it more being residential appliances or not.
Right. I remember you mentioning that in your presentation.
Yeah, but they're trying to work with partners in the industry and see if there are other industry partners that might come in and work with them for some programming as well. So that's still being developed, and we're excited to see where it goes.
Looks like it's moving really quickly.
That
really
it
nice. Okay, well, thank you, Molly, so much for sharing your work. Really appreciate that. And I'm going to stop recording now.